what you're gonna do. When the NWO destroys you.
Anything less would be civilized.
What is going on, my people, friends, fellow wisdom seekers, fellow truth seekers, everybody? Welcome to the Brave New World Order, straight out the dungeons of podcasting. I am Brandon St. One. In this episode, we are going to continue our descent into the abyss that is the Donald Trump Assassination Attempt. This is part 2. When I recorded part 1, it was the very next day. Not even a full 24 hours had gone by, and not that much information was out. There was a lot, but there was a lot of speculation. But since then, there has been a lot of information. Multiple shooters, possibly. An inside job, perhaps. Well, based on all the information that's out right now, it doesn't seem like this is the work of a lone gunman. Based on some of the audio forensic analysis, it seems like there are multiple guns being fired, and we're going to go through some of the forensic audio analysis that was done by Mike Adams, who goes by @HealthRanger on X, that I think is the most compelling evidence that's out there. The government has been completely hush-hush about all this, so everything that's coming out has pretty much been discovered by citizen journalists. Senator Ron Johnson is putting together a preliminary report. He appeared on a Fox News morning show on Sunday, July 21st, that I have a clip from, and he's talking about a mysterious man in a gray suit that went up to the roof after the shooter had been killed. And this man in the gray suit told the local law enforcement agents to send any pictures that they took on that roof of the body of the crime scene. And he told them to send those pictures to a number. And we'll talk about what was uncovered about who this mysterious man in the gray suit is, who he works for. We'll listen to the clip of Ron Johnson. I also have some clips of multiple witnesses talking about water tower activities. We have so much to talk about in this episode. I have been collecting as much information as I have been able to this whole week. It seems like every time I went to check what was going on, there was some more information popping up, information overload. So I'm going to do part 2, and then I'm going to let it simmer a little while, let some more information come out, and if anything interesting comes out, I'll jump back into it. So let's just dive right in. First thing I want to talk about is the possibility of multiple shooters. I think the most compelling evidence that points to multiple shooters is the audio forensic analysis that was done by Mike Baker. And we're going to take a listen to that so we can get a better understanding how they could know if multiple guns are being fired, and they could possibly know the distances those guns are being fired from. Now, I don't really know much about Mike Adams. I just know he runs a website called Health Ranger, and he goes by @HealthRanger on X, and he's been doing these audio analysis. I guess he's familiar with gunfire. He's a shooter. He knows guns, but I'm not familiar with him at all. So I'm just saying, question everything. I just found it super interesting, wanted to share it with you. So let's go through some of this audio.
Right here are the first 3 shots. So let's play that. Actually, let me get it in stereo. Okay. Okay, you got that? So let's learn how these work. Let me play it one more time. This sound that you hear right here, this is the hypersonic crack of the incoming round coming near the microphone. Here's what that sounds like. Okay, I'm just playing that over and over again for you. It's a snap, okay? And then this is the sound of the boom from the rifle or the rifle report at a distance. All right, so the typical pattern that you hear with incoming rounds from rifle rounds, which travel much faster than the speed of sound, is something like this. Got it? It's like a snap, boom, snap, boom. Okay? Now, that's a very typical pattern. In fact, here's another example of that. This is the third round that was fired. And then this was the first round that was fired right here. Okay. Now, what's interesting, we'll take this one. If you measure the distance or the time duration between these two events, like this right here, if you look at the time codes here and you carefully measure this, it comes out to 0.22 seconds. And 0.22 seconds, if you do the math on that, with some pretty good guesses about muzzle velocity, density altitude or air density and humidity and air temperature and so on, then you can get a pretty good guess about the speed of sound. And then by doing some pretty basic algebra, you can calculate the distance from which this round arrived. And if you do the math on this with some pretty basic assumptions, let's see, that distance comes out to about somewhere between 400 and 450 feet, essentially, based on the numbers that you use. And that's consistent with the position of the known shooter, the identified shooter, Crooks, as he has been identified by media sources and so on. So if you hear the first 3 rounds, and you'll notice then that the distance or the time difference between the snap and the crack is consistent among all these 3 rounds. It's exactly the same. It's 0.22 seconds. So if I play this, that's the same time gap as this. Okay? So we know that those first 3 rounds, which are indicated here, these first 3 rounds are fired from the same distance. And they sound like the same rifle. They have about the same sound quality and sound signature.
So you can hear the first 3 shots and how he explained that snap pop can determine the distance. He's saying 400 to 450 feet, the first 3 shots from the same gun. So let's listen to some more and see what he has to say about some of the other gunfire that pops off.
If we move forward a few seconds, now after that third round is fired, here's the third round, snap, boom, and then there's all this kind of crowd noise with no rounds fired. Okay, that's Trump ducking down, Secret Service getting on top of him, some people starting to scream in the crowd. And by the way, this audio is unedited by me. This is audio straight out of the Fox News feed. I have not done anything. I haven't even adjusted levels. After this crowd noise and, get down, then you have this flurry. Really, it's about to right here, this flurry of additional shots. And at full speed, which I'll play here, it's at first very difficult to make any sense of this. Listen. Okay. And if you're not good at or experienced at audio forensics, that just sounds like a flurry of fire. So let me play that cluster for you at half speed. I'm cutting it off here on purpose. I'm eliminating this for now. We'll get to that later, okay? But we're going to focus on these things right here. So listen to it at half speed. Now, again, at first glance, you might think, well, it just sounds like a bunch of shooting. Well, like, what's the big deal? Well, we're going to zoom in and we're going to go through these one by one. All right, so how many gunshots was that? Hard to tell if you don't know what you're looking for, right? So let's zoom in really tightly here. And let's take these shots one by one, okay? So we know that snap boom is what we're looking for. So let's play this. That's a snap boom. Snap boom. And it turns out that that is also very close to 0.22 seconds. So this first round, this is actually round 4 in terms of all the rounds that we know that were fired, right? Because the first 3, well, look, the first 3 are over here. Those are the first 3. We've already covered those first 3. So now we're on round number 4. And 4, again, this time distance here is consistent with a shooter at roughly 400 to 450 feet. So then let's go to the next little cluster that we hear. Let's figure out, what is this? Okay, here we have the same pattern. Snap, boom. Snap, boom, snap, boom, right? And what's the distance here? What is this distance? It's also very close to 0.22. So that's also consistent with the shooter that we believe was on the roof, right? The crooks.
So, based on this audio forensic analysis, Mike Adams believes that the first 5 shots were fired from a distance that is consistent with the building that Crooks was on top of. And now he's going to talk about the 6th shot that was fired. And this is where it gets pretty interesting.
So let's listen. Is this round number 6? Does this have snap boom? Let's listen. Whoa. That's not snap boom. That's snap snap. Wait a minute. What's going on? That's actually 2 incoming rounds. And if we let's take that as the time measurement there, okay? And let's really zoom into this. We can kind of move it around, but that's 0.9935. Let me indicate that. And this one here is 10.235. So let's do the math. 10.235 minus 9.933 gives us, this is half speed, 0.302. Okay. So at full speed, that distance would be 0.151. So what we know here is that there are 2 incoming rounds that are arriving 0.151 seconds apart. Now let's go back to the original 1 times speed, the normal speed. Okay. Try to make a little bit of sense of this. Now, again, this is bullet number 4 right here. This is bullet number 5. Snap, bang, snap, bang. And these are the 2 more incoming rounds that we just heard, 2 snaps. You notice how they're much closer together. So that is not, we haven't yet heard the report of the rifle, have we? We've heard 2 incoming rounds. Got it? Okay, so given that we've heard now 2 incoming rounds, we should expect to hear 2 rifle reports. And indeed, okay, remember, these are the 2 incoming rounds, just trying to be really clear here. There it is in stereo. After that, we hear 2 reports. Got it? So this is different from the other pattern where it's snap, boom, snap, boom. This is snap, snap, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Got it? Okay, and this distance right here can tell us, this time gap can give us an estimate of the distance or of this shooter. Okay, so let's do the math on that. So let's say this is the report right here, and this gives us 5.504. So let me put that in the calculator. 5.504 minus, so let's get right there, and that is 5.138. Okay, that gives us 0.366. Let's start over to make sure we know which bullet we're talking about. Starting from the beginning. Okay, so that's 3 bullets, right? 3 bullets there. This is number 4. This is number 5. This is the snap of number 6. And this is the report of number 6. And that snap and that report in this normal speed audio file, they're not 0.22 seconds apart. They're 0.36 seconds apart. Or that's almost twice the time gap between the snap and the report. So that means that the bullet that made this snap, which is the same bullet as the bullet that made this report, is much farther away than the first 3 rounds and round number 4 and number 5. Because rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are pretty much the same distance. But then we have the 6, which is much farther apart. Just ballpark, if we were just take a rough guess, if it's about twice the time distance. You might suppose it's a little bit less than twice the actual ground distance. So maybe that's 800 feet or give or take. We'll actually do the math and we'll get the right number on that, but it's not 400 feet. If it were 400 feet, it would sound like 0.22 seconds. Instead, it sounds like 0.366 seconds. Again, this is the snap of bullet 6, and this is the boom of bullet 6.
All right, you catching this? So the first 5 bullets from the same distance based on the snap pop, and then we have this interesting 6th shot that's fired that doesn't sound like the first 5. And the distance between the snaps and the pops is almost twice the size, indicating that it's possibly twice the distance that the shot was fired from. So now we know about the first 6 shots. Let's hear what he has to say about the 7th shot.
Now we have this other bullet here, bullet 7. We haven't covered this one yet. Bullet 7. Where is the boom for bullet 7? Well, as we said earlier, it's out here. So bullet 7, here's what you're going to hear in this group is bullet 7 arriving, the rifle report of the shot of number 6, and then the rifle report of the shot of bullet 7. Listen to this. Hear it? Stop, boom, boom. Stop, boom, boom. Okay? It's almost got rhythm. Now, what if we measure this distance then between the incoming snap of this round and the boom of this rifle? What does that look like? Well, I have pre-measured that, by the way, at 0.77 seconds. But we've got 0.77 seconds gap for bullet number 7. And I did go ahead and do the algebra on that one. And let me tell you the assumptions I made. I made the assumption of muzzle velocity at an average of 3,000 feet per second. And anyway, with that assumption at 3,000 feet per second, then that distance comes out to, if I did the math right, 1,386 feet, not yards, but feet. So let's just round that to 1,400 feet away. 1,400 feet away is about 1,000 feet farther away than the shooter on the roof, crooks. So somebody, somewhere from some angle, we don't know the angle, we can't calculate the angle from the audio forensics, by the way. Somebody took a shot from about 1,400 feet.
Shit, huh? Bullet number 7 possibly traveled 1,400 feet, which is 1,000 feet more than they're placing crooks on top of that building. The water tower has been mentioned multiple times by multiple people. Even Mike Baker doing this analysis brings up the water tower. He doesn't know the distance, though, at the time that he recorded that. I went looking around, and I've seen distances of 760 feet from Trump's podium that the water tower stands. Doesn't quite line up with the distance of the 7th shot because that is about 1,400 feet away. His estimation, Mike Adams, not mine. But the water tower does line up with the distance of the 6th shot because he estimated it at about 800 feet away. So that's pretty damn interesting. And I wonder where somebody could have fired from 1,400 feet away, maybe the woods. Purely speculation at this point, because that 7th shot would have had to have been fired from like 600, 500 feet away from shot number 6. And the water tower is pretty far away when you see it in the videos. It looks like it's like in the distance. So another like 500, 600 feet, man, they were really going for it. I mean, if you were going to carry out an assassination attempt at a high level like this, you wouldn't rely on one person. You would have shooters all over the place firing from multiple angles. It's most likely how they took Kennedy out. With all this gunfire audio analysis, it seems like something else was going on. There's a lot more to that forensic audio analysis that Mike Baker did. I just chopped up what I thought was the most interesting, to the point parts of it. I suggest you all go check it out for yourselves, and you can watch as he goes through the sound file. You can see the snaps, the pops in real time, and get more of a visual experience. Since this is only audio, I tried to make it as coherent and easy to follow along as possible. So now that we established based on the audio that there were multiple guns being fired from multiple distances, let's dive into some of the witness testimony from the day of the rally and hear what they have to say about the water tower. Check this out.
First crack of the gunfire, and I just screamed, "It's the sniper! It's the sniper!" And he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what we're hearing.
And yeah, and then at that same exact moment, there was a spray from the right side of the stage that I thought was some type of gas.
That's one witness that supposedly saw somebody firing from the water tower. Obviously, she's there in the moment. She hears gunfire. She's probably frightened. She probably has no idea what's going on. So that's just her testimony of what she believes happened. But it is interesting when there are multiple witnesses that describe the same exact type of things. I have a couple more clips to listen to of witnesses. This next one here describes one shooter in the water tower and another one by a fence.
And we couldn't call them, and so we started trying to go after them then when they finally let us up, and they had been right by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower, there was one by the fence. And still, obviously, initial report.
So that's pretty interesting eyewitness testimony. One shooter in the water tower, one by the fence. I really wonder if the FBI has been tracking these witnesses down and questioning them about what they witnessed that day. So far, we haven't heard a peep, any official peep from the government, from the FBI. All we have heard is this push for the lone gunman theory. A lonely 20-year-old depressed kid decided to act upon himself, bringing a stepladder, probably a 12 to 15-foot stepladder that he had to acquire somehow, carry to the rally grounds, set it up on that building, and he also had a rangefinder that snipers use to measure distances for like long range shots, and he had a car packed with explosives. He had a detonator that was found on him, and he had pretty much zero social media or online footprint. And he flew a drone over the rally grounds hours before to scope the scene. And he was captured by rally attendees on video about an hour and 5 minutes before the shooting took place. In the background, outside of the rally grounds, there's a fence, and you can see him right around the building, moseying around. Multiple law enforcement agents were notified of his presence. People knew about him way before the shooting took place. It seems like it was allowed to happen. He was allowed to be up on that building. He was allowed to fire some shots. It looks like he actually fired the shot that hit Donald Trump's ear and killed somebody. So that's all we have from the government so far, is that it was a lone gunman, like it always is. So I have one more eyewitness testimony to listen to. This woman mentions the water tower yet again, and she mentions that sharpshooters took out that sniper that was on the water tower. Take a listen.
Aaron, what was going through your mind? What did you think when you first heard those sounds?
I thought this is what you just said. I thought it was fireworks, 4th of July. It's been pop, pop, pop. That's what it sounded like. The gentleman behind me, I was one seat. He was to the right of me. He could see the sharpshooter behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here.
So that's 3 different eyewitnesses mentioning that they saw somebody in the water tower. And then one woman also mentions that she saw another shooter by the fence. And like I said earlier, this is eyewitness testimony from people that were just involved in a very chaotic event. So we have to take eyewitness testimony with a grain of salt, obviously. But when you have at least three different, there's probably more clips out there, and perhaps tons of witnesses that aren't even on record as of yet that saw something else happening that day than what's been reported. And I'm sure the FBI is just going to get right to the bottom of everything in due time. They're just going to say it's a massive failure of the Secret Service. It'll never happen again. The lone gunman was able to pull this off. But I'm wondering how they're going to sweep all this information that's out there under the rug. It's all out there now. All this gunfire audio analysis. What are they going to say about this? I think it's too far gone. I think it got away from them. I think they took their shot. They missed. They were going to take out their problem, and they didn't care about answering the questions. It was going to be complete chaos anyway if Donald Trump actually got assassinated. And they weren't really thinking about telling us answers to anything. They don't really give a shit about that. So they were going to eliminate him and deal with the repercussions, but they missed. And now they have to deal with the fact that he's still here and the people are demanding answers. So we'll see what happens. The next thing here that I want to talk about, I mentioned earlier, Senator Ron Johnson is launching a preliminary investigation into what happened on July 13th. And he also went on Fox News morning show on Sunday, the 21st of July, and he talked about this mysterious man in the gray suit. Let's take a listen to the clip, and we'll find out who this person is.
You sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland, Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and Director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, about this epic failure of security. Can you walk us through what you'd like to see and your preliminary findings of your investigation, which has now become bipartisan? Is that correct?
Correct. I spoke with Chairman Blumenthal, the chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee Investigation. I'm the ranking member. He completely agrees with me that we must start doing transcribed interviews with all the witnesses now while memories are fresh. So that's really good news from my standpoint. My staff immediately started reaching out to local law enforcement. We've gathered a fair amount of information. Again, we're just scratching the surface. But a couple of things that we found out. For example, the Secret Service did not even attend the 9 o'clock security meeting with local law enforcement. Pretty well put in charge the Butler County law enforcement to coordinate things. Law enforcement wasn't even on the same channel.
So
the
that was
SWAT and
just
sniper teams
just to
weren't.
be clear, Senator, that was a 9 a.m. meeting on July 13th, the day of the shooting.
Correct.
Secret Service
Secret
wasn't
Service
there.
had been there for site visits, weren't even there. Kind of turned over some of the outer perimeter stuff to local law enforcement. They weren't even on the same security channel. So the sniper and SWAT teams weren't on the same channel as the patrol officers, and they weren't on the same channel as Secret Service. So they had to relay things. One of the things we found out is that we've got a more detailed timeline. This picture is now on the internet, but a photo was taken by the local sniper team in the AGR building at 5:14 of Crooks. So again, we had pictures of this guy. Why wasn't he intercepted? There's so many unanswered questions here.
The pictures were taken at 5:14, and he was shot at 6:11.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, we've got a more so I'm going to be issuing a preliminary report. It's preliminary. It's just scratching the surface. We're primarily going to release that report to solicit more eyewitness testimony. If you took video, save it. Make a backup copy. We can glean things in terms of audio and in terms of where the shots came from. Was it one rifle? Was it more than one? I've seen some pretty interesting video on the internet by experts that certainly calls into question what the FBI is telling us about a single shooter. Again, we're only just beginning this, but it is so important that people who saw things, that have information, they preserve it, they memorialize what they saw, because memories change over time. They can be influenced. So it's good news on a bipartisan basis. Chairman Blumenthal and I are dedicated to taking transcribed interviews with law enforcement and public, just members of the general public that were at that rally. No matter how insignificant your piece of information might be, it might lend to provide the full story of what happened, because the American public needs to understand what happened here.
So I know that, I tweeted out yesterday the fact that you're doing this bipartisan investigation, and I put on your email. You have an email that you want people to send information to, and I know that you'll tweet that later. But I got to get to this. After the shooter was taken down by Secret Service, the local law enforcement, and I know this from some of your preliminary comments, your preliminary findings, started taking pictures of the dead body, right? Can you tell us what happened then?
Correct. So that sniper team that was in the AGR building, they're the first ones that went up on the roof. They were the first to encounter the dead assassin at that point in time. Later on, other people joined them, and somebody told them to send the pictures they had taken to an ATF agent, which I think is very strange. And we called up that ATF agent. That individual said that he was with ATF, and now he's gone dark. We've also reached out to the Secret Service agents in charge on the ground. All we're getting there is a runaround. So we are getting information from local law enforcement, and we appreciate that. But unfortunately, federal law enforcement agents, they're just saying, well, go through your congressional liaison. Again, that's going to be unacceptable. I wish I could rely and have faith in the FBI and the Secret Service to do a truthful accounting of this, but that's not been my experience with the Russian collusion hoax, and for years dealing with federal law enforcement. We need completely separate and independent investigations, and it has to start now.
So are you questioning whether or not there was a second shooter? Is that what you're questioning, or if the shooter had a different gun?
I saw an extremely convincing video online. I know it's all over the place. There were 3 distinct shots early on, followed by another 5 in more staccato, more rapidly fired, and then the final one, which we believe took the shooter out. How do you explain that? I don't know. I'm not an expert. But the individual putting that video out says it clearly shows that there are at least 3 different weapons fired that day. Again, I don't know, but we can't trust the FBI and the Secret Service to do an honest and open and transparent investigation. That's just a very sad fact. So we've got to rely on other sources independent.
So you get the drift. That's pretty fucking fascinating. Some mysterious man shows up and tells everybody to send the pictures to some number. He ends up being an ATF agent, and now he's gone dark, and the Secret Service is giving them the runaround. Shout out to the local law enforcement, though. Maybe that was part of the plan all along, is to try to make the local law enforcement officers look like fools, put it all on them, blame them. But it seems like the local law enforcement are like, we ain't having that. We're cooperating. That's what it seems like, according to Ron Johnson, anyway. Do you want to hear what the Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle had to say about why there wasn't a sniper on the roof that Thomas Crooks was on?
That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, the decision was made to secure the building from inside.
These are the people that are running shit. Crazy shit, right? I almost forgot to mention, too, that they knew about a plot by Iran to assassinate Donald Trump for like weeks or months leading up to that attempt on the 13th. And there's been a lot of talk about Iran since this event happened, and since the developments about what the Secret Service knew about this plot to assassinate Donald Trump came out. And it looks like maybe, perhaps just, purely speculation, that the government might try to point the finger at a foreign country. And that may have been the plot all along, was to get rid of Donald Trump and then nominate somebody else at the Republican National Convention, such as maybe Nikki Haley, and then she's a full warmongering maniac, and then point the finger at Iran for killing Trump, and then there you go. They get what they want, which is to keep the military-industrial war machine well-oiled with blood. That's what happens when you're dealing with an ancient death cult. But let's keep moving on. I got something else that I found interesting. A lot of people are reporting on about this assassination attempt. There is this financial group called Austin Private Wealth LLC filed a massive short on July 12th against Trump Media and Technology Group Corporation. And that was for 12 million shares. And they also shorted 34 million shares of Rumble that same day. So if the assassination attempt wasn't just an attempt, it looks like this Austin Private Wealth LLC would have gotten pretty rich, and Donald Trump Media and Technology Group Corporation and Rumble would have both been in trouble. So I wonder if the FBI is investigating this whole part of it. Seems like maybe some people might have known or had some insider information about what was going to happen on the 13th, like millions and millions of dollars in losses. Just some crazy shit, and there's so much stuff happening all at once. At this moment, Joe Biden has officially dropped out of the campaign. It's kind of funny. They're pushing Kamala Harris. She's going for it. She's going to be the first woman the first black woman, the first to only speak in riddles and rhymes that are more difficult to decipher than Joe Biden's speeches.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know? What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been.
What 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 can be unburdened by what has been.
Who we can be unburdened by who we have been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
Where we can be unburdened by where we have been and unburdened by where we are right now.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
I just wanted to show you all how ridiculous these people are. Every last one of them. So as I'm recording this right now, the Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle, who we talked about earlier, is testifying in front of the Senate. She had to be subpoenaed to show up there. She didn't want to go. And she's getting hammered from both sides of the aisle. They are all pretty much calling for her to resign. One of the things I just saw moments ago, she was being asked whether or not Thomas Crooks acted alone, and she would not answer yes or no. She just kept saying you'd have to refer to the FBI's investigation. So just throwing that out there, what I just saw just a few minutes ago. And I'll be keeping tabs on this story and reporting them to you in a part 3 episode. I'm going to let it simmer down. I want to get back to some occult, magic, fallen angels, all that crazy stuff, ancient texts. Get back to that for a little bit. Let the dust settle. Let some more information come out. And then I'll come back to this stuff. It's all just energy harvesting anyway, right? You can pay attention to this stuff, but just realize you are paying attention with your time in your life, moments of your life. That's why you can't let it consume you. And this story is pretty big, and it's hard to not want to watch and try to find out everything that's happening as it comes in. But I'm going to cool my jets on that for a little while. And I hope that you enjoyed this part 2 episode. I hope I cleared things up. I actually wanted to clear a few things up. From part 1, I showed a clip of a lunatic lefty person going apeshit who was possibly Thomas Crooks. I found out that it wasn't. So just wanted to let you all know. That's what happens when you try to get in on these stories when they first come out. And another thing that I said was that Trump was playing golf the very next morning. And that wasn't true. There was a clip going around of him golfing. And it was from June or some previous date. So I just wanted to clear up a few things. I just want to talk shit about what's going on. And I see a lot of things out there. And I try not to put anything out there that's wrong. But I'm probably going to do that unknowingly. I'm not trying to do it. So if I find out that I put something in an episode that wasn't right, I'm going to try to set the record straight, if you know what I mean. So that's all I have for the Donald Trump Assassination Attempt Part 2. I hope that you learned some stuff from this episode, some things to think about. Those gunshots are pretty interesting. Sounds like there may have been multiple shooters. Even if there wasn't, how the hell did this Thomas Crooks, fucking 20-year-old loser with no online social media presence, get up there and totally scope out the scene with a drone beforehand? How did all that happen? All I know is there are way more questions than answers at this point, and we're going to keep looking at it, and we're going to continue to dive into this realm, into this reality. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you all so much for coming along with me on this journey. Let me know what you think. Reach out, leave a comment, leave a review, smash that like button. Let's break that goddamn algorithm. Let's reach critical mass. Let's get this information out so it's undeniable and they have to answer our questions. You know what to do. Thanks again, everybody. Much more brave new world order to come. In the meantime, stay positive, question everything, and think for yourselves. Much love. Peace out.